Hard times build character.
This isn't just a show, this is real life. It's not about how you start, it's about how you finish.
You gotta see it before anyone else can see it.
Every second, every minute, every day.
We train for life. We got you.
And welcome back, everybody, to the Relentless Way podcast. Paul Alvier here with my longtime friend and business partner, Matt Strout. We are here for episode number 4, season 3, with our good friend, Corey Weissman. Today's episode, Taking the First Step. Corey, thanks so much for joining us, as always. Good friend of ours. Thanks for coming into the studio today.
Yeah, man, appreciate it. Appreciate you guys having me. Love what you guys are doing. Happy to be a part of it and see what I could add.
Yeah, for sure.
Excited.
We're excited to, as always, get some good perspective. The three of us here, we could get into some good conversation, as always, since we were younger guys. But hopefully we give our listeners, everyone listening on Amazon Music, Spotify, Apple Music, and for those, thank you so much for watching on YouTube. We know it's not a place that everybody goes, but sometimes it's cool to see the familiar faces. So thank you all you listeners. We're hoping you get some great perspective today. So actually, my first thing I want to start off with is just to catch up a little bit with you. What do you have going on these days? Like what's going on, or what's going on right now in your life?
So these days I'm trying to, still we'll get into my story a little bit, but trying to do some speaking, share my message, obviously that we'll get into, but Pretty exciting. Just started a job a few months ago in medical device sales. I'm still real passionate about giving back. So I'm selling devices that are making a difference and helping people with their health. Work for a company called Hillrom. So really excited, just kind of, working along my journey, figuring out, exactly what I want to do with my life, where I want to end up, and, kind of just enjoying the ride, but excited to, be where I'm at.
For sure. We love that. Always a hard worker, always putting in time, always looking to grow, advance from, obviously we're all real good friends here. So watching, all of us grow within our professional world, and it's cool to hear everything's going well, obviously, just to give the people a little background and kind of, that you're also doing your thing, you know what I mean? A regular guy, for lack of better words. So ironically, right, just a few days ago was Corey's 10-year anniversary to returning to the basketball court at Gettysburg University, knocking down that free throw. So just this whole year, as everyone has seen on our social media and in our first challenge day of the year, we are celebrating 10 years in business. So crazy to think that around that part of our journey, you were making a mark and we were making a mark and not looking back from there. So really cool stuff. So take us back to, a lot of the listeners are probably thinking, what do you mean returning from what? You know what I mean? He returned back to the court. Was he benched for a couple games? Was he suspended? What it is. So take us back to the day that your life changed and you started taking those first steps.
Yeah. So grew up with you guys, Jackson, normal guy, athlete, like we all were, healthy, and fate would have it that March 26, 2009. Had a catastrophic stroke, as you guys know, born with an abnormal blood vessel. I was on a, pretty steady trajectory. Obviously scored 1,000 points in high school, worked my butt off, had a chance to play in college. And again, I think everything happens for a reason. And obviously as we talk, you guys already know, I think everything happens for a reason. That fateful day, March 26, 2009, felt like a bomb went off in my head. I was lifting weights like I always do, trying to get after it, trying to better myself, to come back in my sophomore year, be a better player. And, bomb went off in my head and turned out to be a stroke, paralyzed the left side of my body, and probably would have, knocked a bunch of people down and, forced them to quit. But, it's not really how I'm built. It's not what I'm made of. I think one thing we share in common is we're built, from a different cloth. And, I use it as motivation. I, had the stroke, set a goal for myself. I always like to say I took the first step, made up in my mind that I wanted to get back out onto the basketball court. So I'm laying in a hospital bed, the left side of my body paralyzed. And I always say, the first thing I did, I took the first step. I said, I'm going to get back out onto the court. 3.5 years of hard work, a lot of therapy, a lot of extra hours. Got back out onto the court and scored the first point of my college career.
And we're obviously going to, he modestly bridged the gap between the whole entire journey and story, but just leaving you guys off with a little bit of information and understanding where he's coming from, what we meant by returning to the court. On our end, what is amazing to me is no matter how many times we have this conversation, and trust me, not specifically do I always, every time I hang out with him or spend time with him, I ask him, hey, tell me your story. But just our natural conversation is our lives, right? So especially specifically to me, when Corey and I spend time together, it's always, we're just, it's like life and life. Like we're just talking about life, getting better, growing, family, friends. Like that's just how it is. And of course we have fun too, but we just organically know how to do it in between just from all the years and time we spent together. But it never changes for me specific to your journey and flashing back to 2009, the kind of jolt that it puts through my body to flash me back in a prideful way. Watching things that he's done and watching when he speaks on these words, again, in a very modest way of, I had no other option. I wouldn't let it define me, right? That's on the baseline, right? Because he has taken a lot of action, and that's really what we want to hear more into. I would love for the people to hear, one thing is from my voice visiting you at Kessler, and even the times that we were visiting, it wasn't downtime. He was showing us new things he was learning, new things he was doing, new progressions he was making, movement in his arm and his legs. Look, I could do this now. I'm half getting up, and then we watch a couple movies in between and hang out there too. But take it there, right? Yeah. So now in the you have this catastrophic stroke, you're rushed to the hospital, right? By way of ambulance to helicopter, or no, ambulance.
Yeah,
could have been a helicopter.
Could have been a helicopter. I always say it's pretty funny. I missed out on. My story would be a lot cooler. It's a boring story since I missed the helicopter ride, but that was pouring rain, so I had to settle just for the boring ambulance ride. Not that I remembered it. I was, out of it at that point, but. So they rushed me to the hospital. Luckily, Gettysburg's close to Hershey Hospital. Great, trauma center, and took care of me and kind of steadied me. And then after 10 days, brought me to Kessler. I spent a month and a half. But I'll never forget. I'll bring it up. Just I guess to let everybody know. I get asked a lot like how I got through it, and I had my own ways, and we'll get into basketball being my outlet, but my support group, that I had around me, I wouldn't have been able to do it, without the people that I was surrounded by. I'll never forget, you guys, my Jackson guys that I grew up with coming to Hershey Hospital when I was at literally the lowest in my life, laying in a hospital bed, left side of my body paralyzed. I still have, a basketball in my room that you guys all signed.
Right.
I have that basketball in my room in a display case. It just makes me think about, how lucky I was to have that support group. Because a lot of people, obviously over the years, you experience something like I did. You talk to other people who have had, life-changing experiences, and not everybody has the support group that I had. A lot of people are isolated. They're on an island by themselves. At their lowest times, they're depressed, they're upset, they're, wondering if they're gonna, make it out of their, troubling times. Luckily for me, I always had someone to lean on. I had all my guys, I had my teammates, my coaches, but again, importantly, I had, I had you guys that I grew up with, which is awesome. I, couldn't thank you guys enough, and you guys, you know that, love you guys to death.
And of course, during that moment, I remember there was a group of us that went up to the hospital. Were you with us or no?
No.
I know we still had everyone sign the basketball.
Yeah.
But from obviously we were all still connected at that time. A lot of us were in school out that way too, or some people still made the trip. Matt has always been connected. Obviously, you know, we know for what we do here at Relentless and what our mission with the Relentless way is to always be connected with people, always stay in touch, always support people, especially people in your circle. So, you know, just a little insight from your end, Matt. Do you remember, you know, moments of where you were in that point of your life and what you remember of the connection with Corey, you know?
Yeah, well, first, definitely want to make sure that we don't downplay the severity too. Like Corey's going through it real easy and like gentle and nice. He's saying it real good, but like there was moments where it was like life, like it was like life or death, and then it was like never walk again, and then it was like never be able to do certain things. So like I just want to highlight that too. Like there was moments of like how deep and real that this could have went, and that's what we always stay connected and speak on those levels of being able to handle those moments, but the willingness, you know, that's the competitive nature, like we always say we all share, the willingness to never give up and say, first it was life or death, like that's like some real shit, you know, and he fought through that part. Then it was like, you may never walk again, period. Never mind be able to like stand up, move, like, I mean, this kid could do pretty much anything now, right? And it's like, but it's that decision. Like you said, it was a decision that he made inside of his mind. So I just want to highlight that a little bit because he's moving through very nice and clean again, which is cool and that's why we want to show this, is because no matter where you feel like you are, if you don't give up and you keep working through and you surround yourself with the right people, you can get to that other side, right? So you can hear the way he speaks now and it's like no big deal type deal, but this is a big deal. So I want to just take a second and acknowledge that, number one. Number two, as I was preparing for this and I was you know, mentally getting ready and visualizing, I like to get in and feel and get myself prepared. But I literally took myself to I remember getting the call. I was at my Aunt Philly's house in her kitchen. I remember walking to the deck. I was getting the chills the other day, 2 days ago, preparing for this. And I remember getting the call about what happened. Like, it was sick. Like, I was just there. Like, I was in the kitchen. I walked out, heard it. I remember standing on the thing. And it was just like it just like stops you, you know what I mean? This was the first call when it first happened, like when we found out he had a stroke, and that was all we knew at that time. Yeah. And it was a rush, and it was emergency, and it was this, and it was waiting, and it was like, and it's crazy shit. What year was this?
2009.
Right, 2009. I'm trying to remember what. I don't
even know. We were at Central State.
Was I? Yeah.
I was at Albright. I was in college because Burge was with me. I had Burge with me. No, I'm just kidding. Benson was at Westchester. I remember, like, collectively, everyone was, you know, some were at home, some were away at schools, you know, but.
Yeah, and I had, you know, I was living with Jackson guy at the time.
Donald Murphy, right.
So he was actually, crazy right. Story, and you'll remember this.
Yes, yeah.
So Paul, actually, I don't know if you know this, Matt, Paul found out about my stroke before my brother did.
Oh, because
Murph, you know, for those who don't know, played, you know, best football star at Jackson, you know, grew up with us, reached out to you saying, man, you know, you're never going to believe what happened to Corey. He just got rushed to the ambulance. And I think you said you waited a few hours because you didn't want to bother my family.
I didn't know what was going on.
And then you finally called my brother.
Right, so it was me and Burge were roommates at that time. It was our freshman year of college. We were going it was spring of our freshman year. So I think I remember when I came back to the dorm room. Now Murphy wasn't a big communicator at all. I had his number, but if I could count on one finger how many times he actually texted or called me. Right?
Yeah.
So, but obviously we all knew, like, I was with Mark and you were with Donald there, you know. So. I remember coming in and seeing, because at that time it wasn't on our phones and stuff, and he actually messaged me on iMessage on my and I saw it pop up. I'm like, Murphy, what I'm like, no, it was Apple iMessage. So I'm like, Murphy, what the hell, like. So he messaged me, and then, like, he told me all that stuff. Then Burge came back. I talked to him, and me and Burge were just sitting there again in that moment, trying to process it and understand. And like, I don't know, we were how old? 19-year-old boys. Did we know? We didn't. We've dealt with a lot of shit in life, I'm sure. But like at that moment, someone in our family, in our friend group, was this was happening. Number one, we were thinking, like you said, life or death. You know, we were probably emotional at the time. We're thinking all this stuff. Now, who do we call? Do we tell anyone? Does his parents know? Does anyone know? Donald just told us. You know, we're going through this all in our head. I waited a little bit, but I think I didn't know. You know, again, the young me not thinking progressively as I would now, right? You know, his parents are waiting for Jeremy to come to that home because he was away at school. He was in Maryland. He was probably a junior or senior at Maryland.
Yes,
right?
they were waiting. My parents, you know, when they got the call, they wanted to get to the hospital first. Obviously, just, you know, for their sake,
of course.
feeling like I'm okay.
What's
They
going on?
wanted to just get
Yeah,
there
like,
as soon
screw
as
everyone
possible.
else. We're getting there.
Right.
Yeah.
They didn't want to like call my brother and have him not in the know and unsure as he's driving whether or not I was going to be
Right.
okay. So they wanted to get there and make sure I was okay, and then they were going to tell him. And
So
I just thought it was so funny. When I heard this part of the story.
Me trying to figure out information, not even to tell him. I figured he knew already because
Right.
I'm not thinking like a parent at that point,
Yeah.
right? I call Jeremy and he's like, "What?" I'm like, "Oh shit!" I might even hung up or been like, "Yeah, man, call your parents or something." Like in that moment, you know.
Crazy.
But it was crazy just the and then again,
progression,
and I'll
yeah.
tell you, I mean, because obviously then he was you were in an induced coma, right? Or in a sense, or you were
Not necessarily
Yeah.
a coma, but just so out of it,
Right.
just from the massive stroke
Right.
and all the meds I was on. I barely remember the first few days that I was in the hospital. I think one of our really good friends that we grew up with, one of our brothers, Coco.
Yeah.
I called him somebody else when he walked in because I went to someone from Gettysburg. I guess they just had the same appearance, and when he said something, I was like, "Hey, Isabella, what's up?" And he goes, "Corey." He called me Sasha. It's like his nickname.
Of course, the last person you want to make that mistake of because they'll never let it down.
Oh yeah, to this day he still gives me a hard time. He goes, "I drove 2.5 hours out to Hershey to see you. You SOB. Nervous that you're gonna die, and you called me by a different name."
So we were honestly, and I say this, I mean it not just because we're here talking today, but probably one of the most, to me, like impactful health, or just seeing someone in a terrible state or like freakish thing that I've ever experienced was going into that room at that age, at 19 years old. Mm-hmm. I remember they even suggested we go in 2x2 because he was completely out of it. Like, you know what I mean? He was hooked up to all these machines, all this stuff. All I remember is seeing him. Obviously, you weren't looking at all this stuff, but I went in with Coco, so it was me and Coco. So I was got first-hand experience of that.
Oh, God.
He looked at me. He's like, "What?" I'm like, "Dude, he's a little out of it." So
Coco's extremely funny for everyone that doesn't know. He's got a good character.
I mean, to that point, if I could reflect a little bit on the overall picture, Corey talks about the people around him, how some people don't have that in moments like this in their life. We naturally, and this just is a testament to all of us, Corey specifically as a leader, as the impact that he had on people in his life from then all the way to this point, how he, as he would mention, utilized this as motivation and energy to better himself and other people. We, as 19-year-old boys, rallied up. There was no parent that said, "Hey guys, go to the store, buy a basketball, everyone sign it and bring and go meet Corey." It was collectively all of us, and even guys that didn't make it, like somehow we got their signatures on that basketball, and we all, to this day, Corey always asks, like, I don't even remember who was there because there was other signatures on it, so I remember like we set it all up, like they drove up the PA Turnpike, they picked up Matt Benson at Westchester, they stopped at Albright, picked us up, Chavone drove because we were all packed in the truck because he was the only one that had a nice beautiful truck at the time, and then Chris Ray was with us too, I believe, because he was at Albright with us. Coco came from home, Klecky, Tetra, whatever the mix was. We all, I'll never forget getting out of that car in the parking lot that day. We parked all the way on one end of the hospital, and we all walked in together. But again, I mean, I'm not up. I'm just reminding everyone, like, this is shit in life that there's no other choice. If we're here to tell you, there's no other choice but to take it head on, right?
Right.
Having that community and those people around you, knowing what that means to you, what would you say in the core of everything? What did basketball mean to you through it all? What did basketball specifically mean to you?
I mean, basketball is everything. It was the reason I got back out into the court. It's the reason why I'm where I'm at today. Why I had such a good recovery. So the thing about it is, everyone has something that can push them to overcome, any obstacle that they're going through. For me, luckily, it was right in front of me. I went to college for basketball, so it's just obvious. I had the stroke, and it's funny how you described, said it before. A lot of times, I almost forget how serious my situation was, but at the same time, I think that's why I did so well, is because, when I was laying in the bed, in the hospital bed, the left side of my body paralyzed, I wasn't thinking, man, I might die. I might have died. I might never make it back out into the court. So I think that's why I forget it. And it's, I've obviously had this conversation, and I've spoken, all over the country, for over 10 years now, and I've never thought of it like that, like you just said. about, this is how serious it was. He could have died. I always just thought of it as, I had this obstacle, but look, I want to get back onto the court. So I just learned something today, which is pretty cool. I think that that goes to show that whatever you're faced with in life, right? If you don't focus on the negative of it and you just focus on your goal, that's why today I talk so lightly about it, so to speak. I know how serious it was, but I don't talk about, the possibility of me not getting better or not walking, because for me that never entered my mind.
Yeah.
I had I was dealt some bad cards, had some adversity, but made up in my mind I was going to overcome it, and here we are.
And that is the relentless way. Like that's everything we preach, everything we talk about, and like Paul keeps going back to is showing how it's like it's a part of the core of who we are as our foundation, and now we're just amplifying it and compounding it. But in the moment, it's like it's crazy to hear that, right? Because when you hear that, it's like there's two types of people in the world: people who focus on problems or people who focus on solutions. So it's like in the moment, all his brain was going to was the competitor side of solution. It's like, all right, it's not even like we don't want to waste time on the problem. It's more of a situation, like we like to say. It's just a situation, right? That's all. And then we'll find a solution, right? But his brain was so wired that way, and that's the only way that he just lived, I always like to study...
Crazy,
I'd like to study like animals too, like the lion, the king of the jungle, right? There's all these different things you could look at. And the difference between the lion and any other animal in the jungle, it's not the biggest animal, it's not the strongest, it's not the fastest, it's not the heaviest, but the difference is its attitude. It's the way that it perceives. When a lion sees any other animal in the jungle, it thinks eat. And when any other animal sees the lion in the jungle, it thinks run. And that's it. It's the way that it presents itself, right? And in that moment, that's all we always knew. It's just, we only knew to show up. Like, didn't matter who was in front of us, you're going to bring it, right? Anything that we've competed in, from to board games, to basketball in the street, to it didn't matter, to having to defend each other, picking up, whether it be in different towns, it just didn't matter. It was that bond and that connection. But then it's the mentality that that's what kept us together still to this day. It's the mentality of just, don't matter what it is, let's get it. Let's figure it out. Let's get this shit done, So it's attitude, and I want everyone to understand, all it is it's a decision first. He already had it, but then he decided, it's just another thing. He didn't let it say, oh my God, this thing is, this isn't like, I rolled my ankle and I got to work it out and then go get back on the court. This is big. But he said, nah, just another situation.
And let's also think about, like, I think what you said is key, is that of the comparison to the lion is that he didn't know any better. The lion doesn't know any better. So Corey and we don't operate in any other way, right? We're just with a no options mentality. Like the only option is to find a solution.
It's compete, baby, yeah.
And again, we go back to all these little things, the competing, and I flash back to he never fucking let me win in the court in front of his house one-on-one. We played like 10 games into the night. I maybe beat him like 2 times in my whole life.
James Elworthy.
Yeah, but like we would play, we'd have the hoop up, and I wasn't even like basketball wasn't my main thing, but I loved playing. Obviously, we lived development over, and I would play in my neighborhood when we were younger. But to a certain point in like high school and middle school and high school when we first met, we would be at his house day in and day out after school. I would ride my bike over or get dropped off, but the point is like he carried that to everything he did, and we carried that to everything we did. Which
he didn't play for
which is also making me go back and think too. So this is a story to throw in the mix. It obviously ties into the day that the stroke occurred, right? But the shirt that you were wearing was a Mr. 1000 shirt with a huge Jaguar logo on the front. Mm-hmm. Now we all, again, the way we do one thing is the way we did everything as a group. So powder puff football in our high school was a major thing, right? Mm-hmm. And we fucking took pride in it and coaching these girls up, getting all the best ones, putting them in the best positions. We were all coordinators. He did defense. He was like receivers and something.
Yeah, I didn't know anything
I didn't
about
know
football,
shit about
but I wanted to be part of it.
I was doing like game plan and scheming. Of course, me. I'm drawing all the papers and plays up. Mm-hmm. I'm handing out booklets to these girls, and like, so we made shirts. For. No, it wasn't that. It was the teacher game, actually. You're right.
Student faculty flag football game.
Student faculty flag football game kind of goes hand in hand with it. We all made shirts with like our nickname on the back and the Jaguar logo on the front. What I'm getting at is during this student faculty flag football game, we're all out there just busting these teachers' asses. Like, and again, wherever you come from, whatever school you went to, your student faculty game, you could say what it is, but I'm telling you, I've never seen a student faculty football game like this. Principal was in a sling the next day because Winston flipped him over his head. Weissman's going against, DeGeneres was for them. He had like 5 touchdowns. He's playing receiver, right?
I still talk about it to this day.
Who you matched up against?
He was like a Division I track.
Was it DeGeneres? It was a little guy,
really fast. And he was not happy. I burned him a couple times.
Yep.
Burge threw me a couple nice passes.
Burge was playing quarterback.
Had two touchdowns, a 2-point conversion. I still talk about it to this day.
This was like an all-out. Like after that, they're like, why hasn't he played football with us all these years? It was our senior year. You know what I mean? And it was an all-out like. I think some people got called into the office the next day, like, guys, what's going on? Like,
we were getting
what the hell?
after it.
It was a student faculty game, and we got the principals coming in with a sling on. You know what I mean? Like, so point being is like the way we do one thing is the way we do everything, right? And to kind of to go back to carrying that attitude the whole way. So now, as Matt said, you make. This it occurs. You make this decision, right? Because you really have no other decision to make. There's only one option for you, and it's up. It's up, right? So we mentioned Kessler, where you had all your rehabilitation work done, or most of it, and then after Kessler, what was the kind of the trajectory from there? Like, how did that process go? I'm trying to bring it all together.
So a month and a half living at Kessler in West Orange, then came home. stayed at my parents' house in Jackson. Went to outpatient therapy. I think it was still 5 times a week. Got my physical therapy to work on my leg primarily, and then occupational therapy to work on my arm. Still did some speech therapy to work on my cognition. Being able to multitask, doing math problems while counting how many people walked by me. Because it was such. My main deficits were physical. The part of my brain that was affected, it really, really focused and affected me, like my motor movements, but just the trauma of the brain injury did affect my cognition and my personality. And I'm sure you guys could notice this. I'm a very sarcastic person. I'm a very sarcastic person. I love joking around. And I'll never forget. When I was in Kessler, I was pretty. I didn't have much of a personality. I didn't always like when we were out in big crowds, and I would get uncomfortable. Not necessarily uncomfortable, but I would tell my mom, all right, I want to go back to the room.
Just like your attention span, even in moments like that laugh was a little duller, and not because he was sad, not because he was feeling sorry for himself, just his reaction, his natural reaction in that moment. It was like you would say something to be like a half-assed laugh, but we knew where it was coming from, but of course we still promoted that and tried to get it out of him as much as we can,
Yeah.
So go ahead, continue.
So I was doing outpatient therapy that month, and again, this was kind of just how how I was wired, and I give a lot of credit to my parents. It's how I was brought up. I wasn't taught any other way. My doctors, I still, at the time when I went home, I still had the abnormal blood vessel in my brain. It was glued shut. So it wasn't, I didn't have the brain surgery yet where it was removed. Still had the abnormal blood vessel in my brain. Doctors were not thinking that I should go back to school in September. I went back, I got back home. I think I was released like the middle of May. Went home and didn't have my brain surgery until June 1st. When I got home to my parents' house in May, I got to work and said, I got to get back to school in September. So I just, again, went right to work. I didn't think about, I might not be able to go back to college. It was like, okay, I did my inpatient therapy. I got better. I was wheeled in on a stretcher, left side paralyzed. By the time I left there, I was able to walk with a cane, by myself. And now it was a matter of just, again, taking the next step, continuing my therapy, and what do I have to do to get back to school in September and get back on the team. And again, that's where my mind was, and I know you guys could relate to it. I'm sure all the listeners, they know your guys' story. You started in the backwoods. You guys had a vision, and I know you guys are just getting started, but you had a vision when you're out in the woods, training people, starting your movement. You get something, you set a goal for yourself. You get one thing in your mind, you just don't let anything stop you.
No other options.
So I get home, and I'm like, I still have the blood vessel in my brain. I'm like, okay, well, what do I got to do to get back to school, get back onto the court? So spent the whole summer, rehabbing, getting stronger, and went back to school in September. Again, really, in all honesty, against the doctor's wishes. I mean, they said it's not going to hurt you, but you know, we would say just take a semester off, but I'm not built that way, and I wasn't brought up that way. You know, so I went back to school and I did my best and had some low times, and I think that you know, I don't take it back for the world because I learned a lot in my first semester. You know, I know I talked to everybody a bunch, and I'm sure, you know, you probably can remember plenty of phone calls of me talking about
100%.
how down I was.
Yep.
You know, I always say I'm not Superman. Like now, here I am. I made it through it, but you know, I did have down moments where I was crying and not upset and feeling bad for myself, but human. You know, understanding that it was really hard what I was going through. But again, going back to regardless of how hard it was and how down I was, I always had, you know, basketball, and I always had that goal of getting back onto the court.
Right.
I want to bring up one of my favorite motivational speakers, Eric Thomas.
For sure.
The hip hop preacher is my favorite.
Yep.
He says, pain's temporary. It might last a minute, an hour, a day, a week, a couple months, but at some point, it'll go away. The only thing that's permanent is quitting. Right? I mean, think about that. So I'm sitting there, I'm at the lowest point of my life. I'm having anxiety attacks. I was never, you know, I never had anxiety growing up. I was never depressed. I was the happiest guy in the world. Awesome life, athletic. My family was great, had awesome friends. What could I complain about? I used to get mad at my, you know, people that back in high school that would come to school and be upset in the morning. And that's, what are you upset about? Like, life's great. You know, and here I am, first time in my life, you know, I'm depressed. I'm, again, having these anxiety attacks. I would be studying, and all of a sudden I would just freak out. I would feel like I started to fall from the sky. I ended up seeing a therapist, and that was really one of the tipping points for me emotionally. And it's something that I do carry with myself to this day, and I love sharing with people is, you know, I told the therapist, I said, listen, man, like, I loved who I was. Like, not that I was like the coolest person in the world, but man, I was such a good guy. And you don't agree.
He was pretty cool.
No, in all honesty, I didn't care how, you know, how cool I was, if people thought I was the funniest person in the world, but I loved that everyone liked me. You didn't have to think I was the coolest, but everyone liked me because I was a good person. I treated everyone the right way.
Facts.
And I loved who I was. I thought I was a kind person. I thought I, you know, tried to bring the best out of people. And obviously then I had, you know, I was a smart guy. I had, you know, good athletic abilities. And I felt like I lost it all like that, which is a key lesson. Obviously, you can learn, you know, and I speak about that. You can learn everything in the blink of an eye. But for me, a big tipping point was, you know, when I told my therapist that at the time, he said, listen, I get it. You know, that Corey was great, but guess what? That Corey's gone. Right? There's nothing you can do about that. Nothing you can do about that. But what you can do is you can make the next Corey even better than that one. And that's what I tried to do. I mean, that's pretty cool thinking about that, right?
You know what's unbelievable too is if you truly think about it, again, not to take the medical, you know, the stroke lightly, but at the point that this happening in your life, right? It's a point where it's kind of twofold. So number one, it's a point where you're growing a lot as a human, as a person. You're developing mentally, physically, and emotionally, right? So, of course, not saying that everyone goes through it the way you had to go through it at all. But people are going through changes like this at this point in their life too. You know, they're feeling these things. But what I think what you're reflecting on is that you, of course, were going to make changes and better yourself and on all that. But you were in such a good place. It wasn't that time yet. It wasn't time for that. You know, you were 19. Maybe for you were going to experience these things and you adjusting and growing yourself and changing directions in your after college. You know, whatever it may be. We don't know, right? But one thing I can say is this: that not that it's identical because, like you said, that like the doctor said, that Corey is gone, but you worked so hard to get yourself back, and I want everyone to understand this. Like, I'm not just work hard aren't just words I'm saying right now. They're things that were actually done. The time you put in, the effort you put in, the vulnerability that you put out there to talk to these to therapists, to say that you're emotionally not feeling well, to say that you physically can't do this or can't do that, to go and get help in all these directions has gotten you back to a place for me knowing you is like, I feel like you might laugh at this, but like you really didn't skip a beat, which is crazy, which is unbelievable. You know, kudos to you. Obviously, you're more than proud of yourself. We know that, but like people really realize, like, I'm not just saying this because he's my friend. Like, this is a person that took this moment as a moment to only get better and grow. He had a catastrophic stroke, and he took the moment to get better and grow, right? Yeah, but like my point is like if to pat you on the back a little bit is like when you just what you just said before too is like I don't know. I know there might be people out there that we've all had situations with. Like I don't know really one person that like could say that I've ever talked to him like, oh, you still friends with Weissman? I really never liked him. I don't like it. Like, you never fucking hear that at all. And trust me, I'm sure people say that about me, and because, we act a little bit different way, but he really was, like, everyone's friend, supportive to everyone, positive as can be. There was no bad bone in his body. He never fought anyone, We might have been in a couple fights of ourselves. He never really got in there. He never liked the altercation, the physical stuff, whatever it was. It was just all like, guys, why can't we all just get along and grow and love each other? So, you're there. Like you're there, or we still have a lot of life to live. But I want everyone to hear that and realize that.
I'm gonna add to that because I was gonna kind of compound two things off of that. Paul hit that really well. The one thing I'll say first is something we say a lot is progress over perfection, right? And in that moment, he keeps talking about how it was always understanding the big picture. It was always about him deciding to get back on the court. But then he was always able to minimize it back down through who we were, is understanding how big things need to be built small, little things out to big things. And in that moment, just like the title of this podcast, it was the first step, right? So I want everybody to understand it's the progress. So he knew where he wanted to end, but he also understood that it was winning the day, winning the moment, win the day, win the week, win the month. And that part is something to really, be proud of. You really had no choice, right? And that's what we talk about but the competitive side of understanding things you've built in the past just carried over and said, okay. It's just like when you wanted to better your 3-point shot, right? The kid had a high percentage of hitting 3 points, right? But he didn't just get that way. He played outside by himself for hours and hours and just perfected the touch. But it was the progress. It was the little motions of his hand, of angling, the release of his fingers. That just carried over to walking now, right? So something that was like not even thought about at one point, and then was the ability to just move and flex and then move, right? And be able to get the body moving, connecting with the brain. It's like, sounds like it's crazy, but it's about breaking it down to the one little thing. The next thing I would say is for everyone out there, if you're listening, we're extremely grateful. If you know someone, everyone should probably benefit and listen to this as well. But the message I would then say to everybody is to truly take a step and appreciate what you have, right? And it's very simple and it sounds cliche, but a lot of times people don't realize, and this is a blessing. This is why we do what we do, is to show perspective. Sometimes we all get lost in our own way. And we think it's woe is me, or this only happens to me, or I wish I could do this, wish I could do that. And sometimes you have everything you need right there. You just got to go, And to have all your physical abilities and blessings and to not use them is like, oh my God, it's like, that's what we're trying to do, is get people moving, and we're trying to simplify things down for people and say, hey, you don't got to do this, this, and this. You just got to do this. Let's just start by moving a little bit and get going, because just moving a little bit brought your spirits up, right? Because it was you talk about the emotional side now as well. We understand that's the core of a human, is the emotional side. So not only talking to someone, but then also getting the physiological changes in your body by just moving simple. But by laying and doing nothing, you can't shift those chemicals that we need to shift, right? So it's, again, a testament just to say, listen, go out of your way to read and hear different stories of life, because all it does is it kind of puts you in a state of like, all right, life is pretty hard, and I am blessed. I do have this, this, and this. I might not have that, but hey, it could be worse, right? There's other people out there, but now the greatest part of stories is not just the story, but it's the other side, right? And that's why we're here again, is to not just tell the story, but then also to show the other side of what he's done with it and how he's living up to his fullest potential, constantly getting better, but then also sharing his message.
Cool part of of your journey too, as far as it goes connecting with Relentless, is we spent a lot of time when you lived closer to us boxing, right? That was a pretty cool experience. I know for me, I learned a lot of connecting everything together, and sure,
Yeah, no, I mean, for me, it was. I'll never forget that, coming in, and when you want to talk about taking things step by step and really breaking things down, I worked a lot with you, Matt, and hit some, pads with you, but you would break down my footwork, right? Granular, not talking about how fast I was throwing my punches, or just let's get you tough so you could beat somebody up. You took my left foot, which was my weak foot, and I'm trying to remember the numbers, but what's a left uppercut is a 4?
5.
A 5.
Yeah, they've shifted over the years. You're probably right back then, yes.
So there was one that you used to know would kill me because my left hip was weak, and I'm not, I'll never forget this.
Yeah.
My left hip was weak, so not only weren't just thinking, okay, let me get this guy into box and get in shape. You were like, no, this is his deficit, and this is why I attribute so much to your guys' whole program. Is you don't just sit and say this person wants to lose 15 pounds. Let's just get them moving around and exercising, and they'll lose 15 pounds. You guys analyze each person. For me, you looked at me and you said, okay, his left hip is weak. So I'll have him throw a bunch of punches, but I know every time I call out that left uppercut, he has to step and really explode off that left hip. And I remember you breaking it down to me and saying, listen, I know this is tough for you, but I'm calling this for a reason. I'm having you duck and then explode because I know it's going to get you better. So literally, you just beat it home. You said start small and grow. And going back to, I forget who said it, but talking about some little accomplishments that I had in rehab. Again, as that, I kept a journal when I was in rehab. It was a great, really, really great outlet for me. I had one of my college teammates at the time came and said, "Listen, you're gonna have a lot of time by yourself. Unfortunately, when you're in rehab, people are gonna be working in school." He's like, when I was hurt and had a lot of time down, I kept a journal. And it's not a diary or anything, but it's literally if you want to curse, if you want to do anything, just write it in the journal. Unfortunately, no one's in the room with you, so just write it down. Whatever it is, whatever's on your mind, just write it down. Again, the positive person I am. I have that journal to this day. In that journal, it says, it has the date on it, and it's cool. I go back and look at it. It says, able to move my hand a little bit more today. Can't wait to get back out into the court. Able to move my ankle. Can't wait to get back out into the court. So literally taking small things and being able to then envision yourself accomplishing your goal, right? So I don't know the ins and outs of your guys' training in the boxing, but if you apply it to your program, talking about winning each day, okay, let's get through here, let's accomplish these goals today, so that in 5 years, in 1 year, in 1 month, whatever it is, you can be where you want to be. It's taking that day and then looking forward to, okay, I'm going to win this day, tomorrow, and the next, so that I can get to where I want to be.
I remember back to the boxing, I was like translated when I was working on it might have been something that we collectively thought up. We were having you, at some point, we were calling out the motion over the number. So it was like pivot.
Left foot.
It was like left pivot, right feet, kick.
Right foot,
so he was relating left foot pivot to left foot, step left foot. That was our jab. And I remember we were calling rounds just off that, and because we were connecting everything, it was an unbelievable learning point for us. We didn't deal with it. We dealt with certain things, and we just put it together with, like Corey said, with the individual that was in front of us. And he was responsive, you know what I mean? He just wanted to work and wanted to learn and grow. He didn't just want to come in and rock mitts and sweat, he wanted to learn, and he knew what it was, And
we're talking about doing, in the beginning, minimal little things, and he was dripping sweat, he was putting the work in because of the connection. I think the cool part about it was we were evolving at the time of understanding the human. We had a good understanding of the kinetic chain in the body. We were also evolving more and more into understanding fighting and boxing, kickboxing, the art of moving the body through space. So I think it was cool because without knowing the situation, we were able to kind of take all those things, and because of our love for him and wanting him to get better and push him but not discourage him, it just worked itself out. It figured itself out, but it was cool to watch the connection, because now to this day, we are able to take those things and apply it. It allows us to understand humans and body, and how to talk to the body, and how to say, like Paul was saying, when I want him to step forward, if I take a step back, I'll stay left foot. And that'll dictate for his left foot to fire. So it's we're re-hardwiring what needs to happen, and then what needs to happen inside of his body for it to happen. Right. And then that slowly started compounding. The other big thing that we need to talk about, because we talk about it a lot, is journaling, writing, whatever you want to call it, you call it that. But the reality is documentation. Releasing, I believe there's a glory in releasing the things inside of your mind to your actual hand and writing it and giving it power, right? Or taking, it's releasing from your mind, putting it here, so you're giving yourself the power. Because sometimes we can lose ourselves in our own mind, all these different things. And when you could take a deep breath and put it onto paper, like Corey said, and then visualize it and create it, that's manifestation at its most beautiful point. And I'm a huge advocate of manifestation. Everything I have to this point is manifested. I see things first, and then we create them. It's just it. Like the team, the facility, everything is running so beautifully. We don't sit around and be like, dude, I can't believe this happened. Like, this is crazy, man. Like,
where did this come from?
We know exactly. It's just happening because we made it happen and we created it. Just like Corey says, it was never a question. He understood. He knew it. He knew he had to win the day. But at the end, it was short-term, long-term, short-term, long-term. He didn't even know what he was doing, but he was just doing it. And that's the part that I want to highlight for a second is in that moment, he was doing everything that should have been done. And these are the things that we take so much pride inside of our movement in creating people to become the next best version of themselves. It's acknowledging where you are, knowing where you've been, and knowing where you want to go. And now let's get there, one day at a time, right?
Sure.
And this is pure display of that and the organic cool part is that it was nobody like, hey, people were giving advice and saying try this, try that, but it really was just manifested through it all, all kind of coming together and figuring out the best answer for you.
Right.
Beautiful stuff. Let's have some fun now, all right? So
Always.
So a nickname that I just covered my mic there. A nickname that a couple people might call you. One of Corey's many nicknames, or we all have many nicknames, right? Is Seawood, right? So like Hollywood, right, Mr. Hollywood. So along this unbelievable, beautiful journey, as I like to refer to it as, that Corey's overcoming this and from the first steps to this point. So now he as he mentioned, he makes his way back to school. He's at Gettysburg and he's just working every day to he can't wait to get back on that court, right? A movie was formulated, right? So bring us through, those couple years into your exit of Gettysburg, and I think it was actually a little bit after too. It obviously has carried on even to this day. How did this all come about?
Yeah, so really a snowball effect. So obviously put the time in, like we've already talked about. Had a goal in mind, wanted to get back out into the court. And had the chance my senior year. I started in the senior game. My coach recognized all the hard work that I put in. He knew how much it meant to me just to get back out into the court. And even though I wasn't 100% and fully able to to play, he knew how much it meant just to step on the court again. And just to give you an idea, and anyone listening, the Corey Weissman story, and we'll get into what it turned into. But the Corey Weissman story, all it was supposed to be was me starting the game, playing for 3 seconds, and coming out, and that was all I wanted. So grew up a good athlete, right? Scored over 1,000 points in high school. I played for 3 seconds on that senior day before I rolled the ball out of bounds, and those 3 seconds were more important to me, and I worked harder for those 3 seconds than I did for all the minutes and all the points I scored in high school. And to think of it like that is just crazy. Like, that's all I wanted was just to step on the court, and just the way it happened was it was really an honorary start. The ball went up, and in order just to prevent me from getting hurt or prevent the game from being affected. At the end of the day, it was a game. Both teams were trying to win, and I wasn't able to help my team with the same ability that someone else would. Ball went up. The other team, luckily, they were really nice. They handed me the ball just so I could have the ball, and I rolled it out of bounds. And I'm telling you, I can't stress it enough. Like, those 3 or 4 seconds when I was just on the court were more important to me than any other minute I played in my entire life, because I worked so hard. I would go to every single practice, and then after practice, I would go to the athletic training room and get my work in. Always doing extra just to get to that point. And I'm a firm believer. I don't believe in chance. I think everything happens for a reason. There was a reason that this happened to me, because I was strong enough. The way I was built, the way I was brought up, whatever it is, I don't know how, but I have something inside of me that I just wasn't going to let what we've been talking about, I wasn't going to let this ruin my life. My story was set from, a higher power, whatever you want to call it, to get back out into the court and to really turn this into, a story to help other people. We just so happened to be up 20 points at the end of the game. My coach, again, knew how hard I worked and was like, let's get him back in the game. I'm sure he'll be okay. get back in the game. Not only did I have the opportunity to run up and down the court, which was awesome, you know, it made me feel like just a basketball player again. It wasn't orchestrated. It was just I was on the court. You know, ran up and down, got the ball a few times, and you know, the other coach, you know, again, things don't just happen by chance. We happened to be playing a coach who was, he actually got an award for this, you know, a sportsmanship award. He was able to take himself out of a situation of being down 20 points and, you know, put himself in someone else's shoes and think about what they've been through and what he could do to help them. So here's a coach, he's down 20 points in a college basketball game, which, you know, no one enjoys, no one likes. He has a job to do. He's not doing it. He's losing. And he took himself out of his situation and put himself in my shoes. And what he did was, we were in the double bonus, so he just told his team to foul me. So he called the timeout and told his team to foul me, you know, so I can go to the free throw line and have,
So he gets
have the opportunity to, you know, get to the free throw line to score the first point of my college career. So again, so if you want to think about that, just someone. Yeah, we all have the opportunity to really affect, you know, impact someone else's life. Something as simple as that. And he probably, at the time, didn't know what that was going to do. But if that coach didn't, you know, put himself in someone else's shoes and think, okay, I can help, you know, forget about what I'm going through. I can help someone else. That guy alone, he changed my life and changed thousands and hundreds and thousands of other lives because it gave me the opportunity, you know, to go to the free throw line. And you know, I went to the line, missed the first one. I was a little bit tight. I joke around and say I missed it on purpose for a dramatic effect. But
1002 would have been
right, exactly.
It wouldn't have done it.
It's not a good title.
It was his first shot in the game in a while.
Yeah. I mean, listen. At the end of the day, I hadn't played since 2000. I hadn't played since 2009, right? Before I had the stroke. So I got back in the game in 2012 and had to dust the cobwebs off a little bit. But yeah, it was crazy. I mean, I got the ball back for the second free throw, and I'm a confident guy. Obviously, I get the ball in my hands, and you know, I'm very confident. Even after the stroke, in practice, I wouldn't miss a lot of free throws. Again, it's you know, the muscle memory for all the hard work I put in years prior. When I got the ball back for that second free throw, all the nerves, anything I had going through my head just went completely out the window. I knew that I just had to go through my routine, put the ball up, and those 3 years of blood, sweat, tears, all the highs and lows that I went through, it was all going to pay off, and the ball was going to go in. There was no way that I was missing that, and it was nothing that I was doing special that day. It was the 3 years of hard work. That is why the ball went in, and at that time, obviously, I was elated. I was so excited, and it was awesome to score a first point, but had no idea what it was going to turn into. Got some local media attention. I think someone from Gettysburg put it on YouTube, and I don't know, overnight it got like 100,000 views, and the word kind of spread. And then again, had like a snowball effect, turned into local Gettysburg papers, to Philadelphia, newspapers and magazines, to Yahoo Sports reaching out, to ESPN reaching out, and we all like to rag on each other and we give each other a hard time. So all you guys are saying, oh, it's Big Shot, doing all these interviews in magazines. What's next, man? A movie? They're gonna make a movie about you. You're gonna be like the next Rudy. I'm like, all right, guys, like leave me alone, and because it was all in good fun, and I know everyone was proud of me, but it was, we all rag on each other.
It was on the ESPN Top 10, SportsCenter Top 10. Right?
It was, yeah. And I'll never forget the story. Before I even saw it, I'm sitting in.
Is this me again?
No. It was Klecky. Great story. And I'll never forget it, and especially coming from him. Anyone that knows him, this is the perfect person to share the news with me, because anything he says, like in this situation, you're like, okay, he's joking. I'm sitting in class, and I get a text from Klecky, and it says, you were just on SportsCenter Top 10. I was like, all right, dude, shut up. He goes, no, I'm serious. I'm eating my Fruity Pebbles, and I'm not even paying attention to the TV, and I hear, at number 10 from Gettysburg College, Corey Weissman, and I still didn't believe him. Like, again, we all know, he's out of our whole group, he is the biggest jokester, and is usually joking around. And sure enough, it was on, SportsCenter Top 10. And it continued to grow. Some people out in California heard about it, and a few people reached out to me and said, we'd be interested in turning it into a film, we decided to go with a group of guys that it seemed like they just had the best interest at heart. They said, listen, you might not know anybody in the movie, might not have ever heard of any of the actors or actresses, but our goal is to, get your story into a film. What I can assure you is that it'll be your story. It won't be Hollywood. It won't be embellished. It'll be your story. And we could assure you that it's going to help other people. So if you're interested in taking the ride with us, we'd be happy to do that with you. So for us, it was a no-brainer. We did it. And yeah, I mean, it's been incredible. It's given me the opportunity, to share my story with, hundreds and thousands of people. It was on Netflix, for 5 years. And now, it's on Amazon Prime.
1,000. It's 1,000 to 1. The Corey Weissman story, right?
Yep,
Get that right.
So,
check it out.
Yeah. So you gotta check it out.
Yeah,
so
you really do,
again, it's
seriously
1,000 to 1 sounds a lot better than 1,000 to 2. So that's why I missed the first free throw. But yeah, no, I mean, and I obviously all you guys joke around with me, Seawood and Hollywood. But I always tell people, all the interviews and the movie and all that stuff is. It really it means nothing to me, and when I share with people, that there's a movie made about me, it has nothing to do with ego. It's I don't have a big ego. Maybe on the side, between our boys, but out in public, I really don't. I share with people because I know it can help. The best part is, and I had no idea this was going to happen when that day on February 11th, 2012. I never knew that day was going to change not only my life but the lives of hundreds and thousands of people all over the world. I would start getting Facebook messages and Instagram messages and emails from people in different countries telling me, hey Corey, just saw your story, I'm going through this, and I was ready to give up, saw your story, got back to work. Man, I can't thank you enough for sharing your story. I mean, I wish I could share all of them. There's a few that stick out. I'll share one that I will never ever forget. So this was very early on after the movie came out. This guy reached out to me and said, listen, Corey, just want to let you know I just saw your story. I just want to thank you for sharing it. This time of the year during the spring, excuse me, is the hardest for me. He's like, I had a stroke 6 years ago, and I worked for a little bit and then stopped seeing progress, so I kind of just stopped. And the spring is really tough for me because I was a t-ball coach, and my son was, I coached my son, and this time of the year he's outside, he's playing catch with his friends, and I honestly I feel like he's ashamed of me because I can't be out there playing catch with him. And then I saw your movie, and this is what I did, and he sent me videos of him doing therapy again.
Oh, shit.
You know what I mean? So like that sort of thing makes everything I went through worth it. All the pain, all the suffering, all the highs and lows that I experienced made it worth it because other people are able to now see my story, and without going through all of my pain, they're able to help them. It's able to help them overcome their obstacles, and it doesn't have to be having a stroke or having something catastrophic. It could be anything, sprained ankle. It could be financial situation. It could be relationships in life. My story goes well beyond a medical condition. It's talking about adversity and obstacles, and it's something that we all face, right?
100%. Like what Paul said earlier is like we all go through these moments in life. So it could be the time in finishing high school or finishing college as a kid, right? Because we all think we know everything, but we're really just kids figuring things out. That you have to go through a time of evolution and shifting and changing. Or like you're saying, it could be any moment. It's not like a certain time or place or thing. It's just a moment in life where, and what he's trying to say is that the moment could just be acknowledging that you're not happy with where you are. And you don't have to have something terrible happen to be like, you know what? Like, I want to change this, right? Because like that's his message that he's trying to get out to the world is like, use this to empower and motivate and inspire so that you don't need to go to those moments. Because all it really takes is a decision. And like Paul said earlier again, it's like sometimes you are forever evolving and shifting. So don't push that away either. Like as you go through life and you evolve and you feel certain different ways to be drawn a certain way or another, like that's okay. Like you're not, like Corey said, like the original Corey of who he was is no longer, and that's all right, because then he got to recreate himself even better, right? And it's about learning and understanding and remembering all the greatest parts of who you were figuring out, writing down, or acknowledging the parts that you don't like, and then recreating them and saying, all right, I don't want these, I'm going to replace them with this. And this can really be done. Like we always say, it's like creating a character on a video game. Like people, you don't really recognize how real that is, in a sense of, it starts with being self-aware and real with yourself, knowing where your starting point is, acknowledging what you want to get better, and then figuring out how to do it. You know, and I think that is what everyone needs to understand, is you could take a deep breath and it could start today. You know, you don't have to have something crazy happen.
Right. No, 100%. One thing I want to add, I forgot to mention it before, going back to, you know, the t-shirts we had made for the flag football game. Right. Like you said, again, everything happens for a reason. I happened to be wearing that shirt that day, and you know, never really had a nickname so much in high school. At least that was PG to put on, you know, the back of my shirt. So I went with Mr. 1000. So ironically enough, like you said, you know, I was wearing the Mr. 1000 shirt that day, and you know, I had the stroke and got in the ambulance. And if you want to think about crazy,
oh, you're wearing that shirt.
So I was wearing my Mr. 1000. So wrap your head around this real quick, okay? So I'm 19 years old, right? I'm at college. I'm, you know, in the best shape of my life. You know, really doing what I want to do. You know, on the basketball team, wearing my Mr. 1000 shirt, which is the person I had created over the last 19 years. Again, that nice person, that you know, good athlete, that, you know, helped people out, that Corey that I loved. And like that, they did this. They cut the shirt right off my body. That, like that. So that's, you know, what I stress. That's what I stress to people. You know, you could work your entire life to become something. If you take it for granted, you don't understand. Like, you could literally lose it like that. So in my case, that Mr. 1000, that person that I created for 19 years and worked my butt off to become, it took a second for that person to be gone. Wow. You know, but again, then going to what you just spoke about, it's about, you know, then growing and becoming something and building something else. You know, leading back to what my therapist said of, you know, that Mr. 1000 is gone, but the next Corey that you make could be 10 times better than him. You know, so I still take a lot from who that Mr. 1000 was, you know, because like you said, I haven't skipped a beat, I haven't changed, you know, my personality, I finally got back. But, you know, through my experience, I've been able to, I feel, you know, and I hope others would feel the same way, become a better person, have a better outlook on life. You know, and it's just, you know, that's why I say it's a blessing, you know, what I went through. And my goal is to, you know, share my story and help other people, because if I could help people, I always say, I wish people could, you know, see life through my eyes without having to go through you know, the pain that I've been through.
We speak on that a lot,
You know, so that's really important to me. So the more I could share my story, and the more I could, you know, help people out. You know, I absolutely, I love it. But I don't know if you knew that story about the Mr. 1000
I didn't remember it like that. That's amazing. I'm sure I've heard it, but that was real. I'm really glad that you said it like that.
And the main purpose that we are here is what these two, Matt and Corey, just reflected on, is that it's about giving a perspective and sharing a perspective, whether it be something catastrophic or something, you know, whatever it is, it's meaningful to, it's an obstacle, as Corey said, to you as an individual, to be able to hear this and hope maybe use it to hedge yourself a little bit and not have to go through things such as that or such as this, right? That's what the Relentless Way is all about. We thank you for sharing your why today, right? And what your why will forever be. We appreciate you. Thanks for coming on.
Of course. Appreciate you guys having me. It's always a pleasure.
For those listening, watching, please share away. Especially when we have our guests on. One thing is if you don't want to share when it's just Matt and I, you know, going at it. But when we have our guests on, like, these are unbelievable perspectives that we have. You know, from this episode to you go a couple episodes back, Alexa Stimple, the Shoe Fairy, and just many in the past too. Please share away. Again, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, and Spotify. Don't hesitate. If you could change someone's life, if you could change someone's perspective and give them something positive to see and learn from, don't hesitate to do that. So, you know, awesome catching up today. Thank you, Corey, again.
Thank you.
Matt and I here as always. The Relentless Way podcast, episode number 4, season 3, Taking the First Step.